Okay, I've got my 90 chains done. We're ready for row 1. So I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to skip this very first chain and I'm going to work into my second chain and I'm going to start single crocheting. But what I'm going to do, instead of working into either my front or my back loop of my chain, so if you look at your chains, they look like V's. You'll see one loop on one side of the V and one loop on the other. So we have our front and back loop. I'm actually going to work into my bottom bump. So if I flip this over, you'll see these little dashes, these little bumps that are on the bottom. I'm going to work into those and it's going to give me a really nice edge. So if you don't want to put an edging on your blanket, you can use this technique and you'll get a nice edge on your project. So I'm going to skip that very first bump, which is this one right here, and I'm going to work into the second one. So I'm just going to go right under, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So I got my first single crochet. Again, I'm going to go under the bottom bump. It takes a little bit of extra time because you don't want to catch any other loops, but once you get the hang of it, I usually kind of use my fingers to push that bump right over my hook. It picks up a little bit more, but let me do a few more and I'll show you the edge that I get from doing this. So at the end of this, I'll have 89 single crochets. Make sure that your stitch count is correct so that you have the right amount of stitches to work your open shells once we get to row 3. So when I do these single crochets in the bottom bump, you'll see that my top and bottom look the same. I have my nice V stitches on both edges. So the bottom of my blanket will look really nice. Plus, if I want to put an edging on it, it's a very easy edge to work into. I have those loops just like the top of my stitches that I can easily crochet into for my edge. So I'm going to keep single crocheting all the way across, and then when I get to the end, we'll turn and begin row 2. Alright, I'm doing my very last stitch of the row. So now I'm done with row 1. You can see my nice edging all along. And I'm going to turn my work and start row 2. So row 2 is going to set up our stitches for our shells to be attached to. So I'm going to chain 3 for my first stitch. That's going to count as a double crochet. So whenever a stitch count, or whenever chains count as a stitch, you skip the stitch that it should have been. So I'm going to skip this first stitch, that first V, and I'm going to double crochet into the next one. So that chain 3 counts as my first double crochet. So I have 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. And that's all I'm doing across is double crocheting under every single stitch. So both loops, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2. So I'm going to have 89 double crochets, technically 88 and a chain 3, but it's going to count as a double crochet. So 89 double crochets at the end of this row. Continue across, but stop on the very last stitch because we're going to join in our new color during that last stitch. So keep going across and then stop at the last stitch and we'll come back and join our new color in. Okay, I'm at the end of row 2. I've got 1 stitch left. So remember, we're going to change our color on this last stitch. So I'm going to start off my double crochet like normal, pull up my loop, then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the first 2, and then I'm going to stop there. I'm dropping my white. I'm no longer going to use it for my next row, and I'm going to bring in my purple, if I can find the end of it. Here we go. So to join in my new color, I'm just going to grab my purple, lay it on my hook, and then pull that through the 2 loops on my hook. You'll see normally this kind of pulls out that last loop, so just grab your white and pull it down. I'm going to cut the white, but first I'm going to lock in my purple a little bit better. So I'm going to turn and I'm going to do the first stitch of row 3, which is a chain 1 and a single crochet in that same stitch. So unlike the double crochet where we skip the first stitch, chain 1s don't count as a stitch. So I'm going to single crochet under these 2 loops. So I also want to catch my yarn here, so I'm going to bring up my tail from my purple. And I'm going to put my hook underneath the 2 loops and my purple tail. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. And now you can see my tail is in between my 2 loops and my working yarn. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through. That's going to help secure my purple yarn until I'm ready to weave it in, which I'm going to do pretty quickly because I'm going to weave in a lot of this as I go so that I don't have tons of tails at the end of my blanket. But I'm going to cut my white now because I don't need it anymore. If it starts to pull out a little, that's okay. Once you weave it in, it's going to tighten back up and look normal again. So don't worry if it starts to pull out a little bit. It's not going to fall apart or anything. So I'm going to cut it long enough to be able to weave it in later. And now I'm going to begin my shell. So my very first stitch was a chain 1 and a single crochet. Now I'm going to start working my open shell. So I'm going to do that in my next stitch, my next double crochet, and I'm actually using the post, which is this whole bar of my double crochet. I'm going to do all the stitches listed in the pattern around this. So you see these big holes on either side. Let me see if I can use my finger as a backdrop. You see the big hole on the right and the left. I'm going to be working through those. So it's kind of like this is my 2 loops of a stitch. I'm going to go through the post or through the holes behind the post and out the other side. And I'm going to do my first stitch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my work sideways to make it a little bit easier to work into. I'm going to yarn over, pull up my loop, and I have 2 loops. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through both. So I'm going to do a single crochet first around that whole post. So if I turn sideways, you'll see that I've grabbed the post, almost like a front post single crochet. Now I'm going to do a half double crochet. So I yarn over, I'm going back around that whole post, yarn over, pull up my loop, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Now I'm going to do a double crochet. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to go around that whole post again, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2. I'm going to do another double crochet again, yarn over, pull up, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then I'm going to finish it off with a treble crochet. So I yarn over twice, and yarn over, go back through that post. So this whole post is covered with stitches. I pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2, yarn over, pull through the third 2. Now I've got this weird arch thing hanging off my blanket. I want to attach it, so I'm going to skip my next 2 double crochets. So I'm going to skip this one and this one. You can also turn your work sideways and look for those V's. So we're working into this very first V here. This is the only time this is going to happen where you'll have a V where you're working around your post. So I'm actually going to skip kind of 3 V's if you look in this way. I'm skipping this one that I just worked into, and 1 and 2, and working into this one here. If you're looking straight ahead, I'm skipping this post and this post, these 2 double crochets, and I'm going to single crochet into this 3rd double crochet. So I'm skipping 2 stitches, but technically you'll see 3 stitches because this first stitch I actually worked my fan around, or my shell around. So now that I've made a single crochet in this double crochet, now I'm going to do the same exact pattern around this post, the same exact post that I did my single crochet into. So I'm going to go back, down and around, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, double crochet, and treble crochet. Then again, I'm going to skip 2 stitches. So if you're looking at it this way, you skip 1, 2, and single crochet into the 3rd. Or now you can turn and you see, because we single crocheted into the top of this double crochet that we worked into, we only have 2 V's up top now. So remember, the first one's going to have 3, and everyone after is only going to have 2. So I go 1, 2, and then I single crochet into the 3rd one. And I'm going to work my next shell around that same stitch that I just single crocheted into. And that's going to be the pattern across. You're going to make these shells around the post of the same stitch that you do your single crochet into. So do your shell, then skip 2 stitches, single crochet into the next stitch, and then do your shell around that same exact stitch that you just single crocheted into. So again, I finish my shell, I skip 1, skip 2, single crochet into the 3rd, and then start working my shell around that same post. And that's what we're going to do all the way across. We'll meet up at the end. It's a very simple ending. We're just going to single crochet in our last stitch, but we'll meet up just to make sure that you understand it. And then we'll join our white back up again. So actually, we're gonna change colors again on that last stitch, so I'll show you how to do that as well. But go ahead and continue your shells across so you can see as we work with these nice open shells, very cute. They'll look really neat when we have the white backdrop all along. But keep going and we'll meet up at the end of the row. Okay, I'm just working on my last shell. And I'm at the end of my row and I'm going to do my very last stitch and I'm going to change over to my new color or my old color because I'm going back to white. So I finish my shell. I'll have 3 stitches left. So I have 2 actual double crochets and my chain 3. So don't forget to work into these chain 3s. They count as a stitch. So my last single crochet is going to be at the top of the chain 3. So I'm going into there and just single crocheting, and I actually, whoops, I need to stop because I want to join in my new color. So I go to my last 2 loops, I just pull up the loop. This is the last step of my single crochet, and now I'm going to join in the white back up. Whoops, find the end of it. Just as we did with the purple, just lay over your hook, pull it through, make sure you have enough tail to weave in, and then with our next stitch, so you can see it's pulling up as normal with the purple. Don't worry about that. You can pull it down once you go to weave it in. But our next stitch is going to be a double crochet, which is technically the beginning of the row, so it's a chain 3, so I don't really have a way to secure my white end just yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the chain 3. And then I'm going to cut my purple because we have to join it back up at the end of row 4 to do some more shells. So get enough to weave in. So now, let me pull my blanket out here. Now we're going to work back across. So we have our chain 3 for our very first stitch. That takes the place of that single crochet that we did. And now we're going to work behind the shells that we made, and we're going to work into row 2. So I'm going to do a double crochet in the double crochet from row 2. So that was the second stitch of row 2 that I'm working into. Oops, let me fix my chain here, it's a little large. Then I'm going to work a double crochet in the next double crochet of row 2. And then we have that single crochet that we attached to this double crochet that we've worked our shell around. We're going to work into those single crochets. So this is the only stitches of row 3 that you'll be working into. You'll do a double crochet into that single crochet stitch. So look for where this V is, and your stitch right above it is your single crochet. You're going to do a double crochet in there, and then again in the stitches behind. So you're going into both loops, just a normal double crochet. So it's 2 double crochets and the 2 double crochets, and then a double crochet in your single crochet. And you're going to do that all the way across. The last 4 stitches we're going to do together, because remember we had that kind of 3 double crochet weirdness at the beginning that we had to do. So I want to go over that with you so you don't miss a stitch, because if you miss one of those, your stitch count's going to be off and you're not going to have the right amount of stitches for your next row. So in the meantime, just do your double crochets in these 2 and the one in your single crochet, and keep doing those all the way across, and then we'll meet up right at the end. Okay, I'm back at the end of row 4, and I've gotten down to the very last shell. So I have that double crochet in the single crochet, and then you remember at the very beginning what we did different from all of our other shells is that we did a single crochet in our first stitch, so that we have this border of a chain 3 or a double crochet, whatever it may be at the time, along our blanket. So we worked our shell in our next double crochet. So behind the shell we have 3 double crochets. So we need to make sure that we work into all 3 of these stitches. So instead of just having 2 double crochets as in all of our other shells, we have one extra that we have to work into, otherwise we are going to be one stitch short. So it's a weird looking stitch because we worked around the post of it, so all you see are the 2 and that third loop, but 2 loops basically for that double crochet. So you have to remember to work into that double crochet. So the last shell will have 3 double crochets, and then you have your original single crochet here, so you have to work into that as well. Just move your tail out of the way and get under both of those top 2 loops. This is our chain 1, so get under both those loops and double crochet, but we're going to stop right before we finish it off because we have to join our purple back in because we have one more row of shells. So lay over your yarn, pull through, turn, and just like row 3, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to lock in our tail with a single crochet in that very first stitch. Then I'm going to cut my white so it's out of the way. We'll join it up again at the end of this row. And now we get to do some more shells. So we're going to go into our next stitch just like we did on row 3. So we have our single crochet in the first stitch, and then we have our next post. So we're going to start our shell in that next post again. So these shells are just stacked right on top of each other. So single crochet, half double, double, another double. They're kind of inside of each other almost when you're working them, so you kind of got to be careful that you don't accidentally catch it with your hook. You don't want to pull any loose ends out because it's going to go kind of right there inside on top of it. So again, we skip our next 2 and we single crochet into the third stitch, which is that double crochet that kind of anchors in between our shells. It went right in between where we did our double crochet into the single crochet. So then we're going to work our new shell around that post. So we do our single, half double. These are a little bit easier to see with this double being right on top. But it's basically the exact same thing as row 3. We do our shell, we skip our next 2, single crochet into the third. Then we're going to do our shell again. So just keep doing that across. Then we'll meet up at the end so we can join our white back in and begin row 6, which will be a little bit different. We're going to switch over to single crochet now because we're going to change our colors in a minute. Okay, I just made my last shell. I've got the 2 double crochets in my chain 3, so I'm going to single crochet into my chain 3, but I'm switching over to my white, so I'm just going to do the first step, yarn over and pull up the loop. Then I'm going to grab my white again for row 6. So pull that through. And turn. And this time I can lock in my white because instead of double crochets for this row, we're doing single crochets. So I'm going to chain 1 just like I did at the beginning of row 5 and single crochet. So I'm going to catch my tail, keep it above where you're going to insert your hook into that last stitch and single crochet right over it. Now we're doing like we did for row 4 where we were working into row 2. So for row 6 we're going to work into row 4, but we're just doing single crochets this time, no double crochets. So I'm going to grab my next stitch down here. Remember, we don't work into our open shells. I'm going to single crochet there, single crochet in the next one, and then single crochet into our single crochet of row 5. So just like row 4, we're working into the 2 back double crochets. So we're doing single crochets, and then we're working into the single crochet of row 5. So we're doing that all the way across. Remember, on that very last shell, you have 3 stitches to catch. So probably stop there again or come back there again so you can see that. But as it is now, just single crochet across and we'll meet up at the end. Okay, I am at the end with the single crochet row, and we're just going over these 3 stitches again so it's ingrained in your memory to work into all 3 so you don't lose any stitches. So we have 2, and then we have that kind of hidden one that the first shell was worked around. And we have our ending stitch. And you'll notice our color is different from what I began with because I have worked on the blanket so you can see how it looks with all the different colors. Also, a couple of other things is I was working on it and I was weaving in the ends as I went, and then I realized one thing you could do for this blanket is leave the ends unwoven in and create fringe on the side of the blanket. So you'd have a rainbow fringe. So you'd put a few more strands in the white, a few more in the orange, and all the way up to create a nice cute fringe on the end. So that's another option if you don't want to weave in all of the ends from all the color changes. So one more thing also is that when you're working this, because of the stitches, how they kind of pull a certain way, you'll see that your blanket is kind of slanted as you work. Don't worry at the end when you block it, you just pull it straight and block it and it's going to relax out. So I'll show you how to do that at the very end of the blanket, how to block it and get it worked back straight. It's just how these are worked on the double crochet post that it kind of, and then you pull it over, it kind of gives it that slant. So we'll fix that at the end. Once you finish this row of single crochet, you're going to turn your work. You can see the back of it too, so you can see how that looks. So you can kind of see how they're kind of leaning this way. So we'll get them straight once we finish the blanket. So we'll flip our blanket over. And then the next row is just going to be single crochet again. So we're going to chain 1. This one's easy because we're just going to single crochet in every stitch across. Okay, I'm at the end of the row of single crochets. So you do 2 rows of single crochets after you finish your row of color, or your last row of the 2 colors. Then, whoops, the very end of our pattern repeat, move this over because my blanket's so huge, is going to be a new row of double crochet. So we're going to chain 3, skip the first stitch, double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet all the way across, and this is going to be the base for our next color. So I'll grab orange next, and then the orange is going to be worked into these double crochets when I come back across. So that's the full pattern repeat. Just change every 2 rows of color, and once this is complete, I'm going to come back and show you how to block, which is basically going to relax your stitches so that they will sit straight instead of wanting to slant. So I'll show you how to do that, and then your blanket will be complete. So continue on. Okay, I finished the blanket. You can see I just have it blocking right now to get it completely, don't want to say square, but completely rectangular. So it's 3 repeats of the color. You'll see the row repeats on the pattern, but if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them below, and thanks for watching.